freedom land. Ain't gonna let no hatred turn me around now. Turn me around now. Turn me around. Ain't gonna let no hatred turn me around. Gonna keep on walking, keep on talking, marching up to freedom.
And good afternoon. Welcome to We Believe Digital, Sizzling special episode of Sizzling in Mississippi. Chris Young alongside the revered attorney Trent Walker. So glad to have you in the studio today, Attorney Walker.
I'm so happy to be here.
You know, we've got some news, and Mr. Walker certainly has news that he wants to put out about an event that's coming up, and certainly it's right in the lane of Sizzling in Mississippi. There's so much going on here, a cauldron of inequity that goes on here in Mississippi, and I know people will remember January 24th, Michael Jenkins and Eddie Parker. We've talked about it on the Newsbreak show. We've talked about it on the Monday night Sizzling in Mississippi show. These Rankin County deputies, no warrant, just barging in this home where they had these suspicions, but the way they treated these two men, it just horror. It's just horror. So there's an event coming up this weekend, Attorney Walker. So let's tell the people.
That's correct. This Saturday, June 10th, 2023, at the Pilgrim Rest Missionary Baptist Church at 925 Trickham Bridge Road in Brandon. There will be a town hall and forum, as well as a fundraiser for Michael Jenkins. That event will start at noon, where lunch will be served, and then we were going to have a town hall event at 1 o'clock. We're going to brief people on the case, much like we're doing now. Also, with regard to the Damian Cameron case, where we also represent the mother of Damian Cameron, who was beaten to death by the Rankin County Sheriff's Department on July 26th of 2021, as well as other cases that we are aware of. And then certainly we will have an opportunity for the people of Rankin County to share their experiences with the Rankin County Sheriff's Department and other law enforcement, because we are on the cusp of trying to affect some positive change. This particular case has gathered the attention of the Justice Department, and so we expect that they are already involved, and we can't let this opportunity go by, because I'm going to tell you, I'm a native of Rankin County. I grew up in Brandon, Mississippi, and this is nothing new to the residents of Rankin County. It just has never been this bad that we are aware of. And so we have an opportunity for change, and we're not letting this opportunity pass by. So that will be July 10th, lunch at noon if you want to eat. Come at 1 if you just want to participate in the town hall at the Pilgrim Rest Missionary Baptist Church, 925 Trickham Bridge Road in Brandon.
So many things. I love the way you're going about and the NAACP has a hand in the.
Yes, the NAACP of Rankin County is a co-sponsor. Black Lawyers for Justice, Brother Markel Bridges with the Building Bridges organization is also a sponsor, and so we're just trying to really, number one, give the people an opportunity to come out and speak, but also to be organized, because this is not something that needs to be a one-off where we have the event and then the powers that be in Rankin County never hear from us again.
Dies out.
This needs to be something organized, and it needs to be ongoing. And so this town hall is the first or the first major of what we hope will be many events to galvanize the people, not just of Rankin County, but of the entire state of Mississippi. If you're a concerned citizen with regard to police brutality, because I love police. I love good policing. Everybody does, and people will say we don't need it. Just, they're not paying attention. We need good policing. We do not need police brutality, and we don't need officers or departments that act as if they can't do their job unless they are brutal in the way that they do it.
Rogue activity.
Well, it's only rogue if it's a departure.
Yeah.
And what we are seeing in a lot of instances is this is not a departure. This is the way things are done.
Yeah. And so many times I love the way you're going about with the engagement and all with the community, because so many times everything, blows up at first, but then people seem to go to sleep and forget about these things. And it seems like a lot of people are content with that.
Well, this particular case, as well as the Damian Cameron case, the element that you didn't have is video of the event.
Wow.
And so when there's video, if you think about the things that stand out most in our minds, from Rodney King, with that video was shocking, and I'm old enough to have remembered when that happened, and the riots and everything that came behind that. But it was the video that shocked everybody. George Floyd, the video is what shocked everybody. Some of these other events, there was the video, because otherwise what happens is what probably would have happened in this case, is that the officers come in, they brutalize the citizens, and then they write a report and leave the case in a posture where it's the victim's word against the officer's word. And we know when you get to the courtroom, very most frequently how that goes.
Right. Tell us, if you will, you're putting all this energy and effort into this to make sure that this gets the visibility that it deserves and the follow-through that it deserves. Tell us about, you mentioned a lifelong resident and growing up in Rankin County and all. Tell us about your background that led to your law firm and all.
Oh, well, just very briefly, as I said, I'm a native of Brandon, Mississippi. I graduated from Pearl High School in 1986. That was back during the days when they actually would bus the black students across 2 or 3 district lines to get them to get us to the school they wanted us to be at. So I actually entered first grade about 4 years after the Rankin County schools and the Pearl separate school district was integrated. And so after I graduated, went to Jackson State. I have a bachelor's as well as a master's from Jackson State. Went to law school in New Orleans at Tulane. Graduated from there in '96, and I clerked at the Mississippi Supreme Court.
Wow.
And I have otherwise been engaged in the practice of law for the last 27 years.
And your firm is here in Jackson?
My firm is here in Jackson at 5255 Keel Street, Suite A as in Apple. My firm is Trent Walker, Counselor at Law.
Wonderful. So we want people to come out on Saturday the 10th at noontime, bring an empty belly. There's going to be a lunch provided, and then merge directly into this town hall co-sponsored by the NAACP and the
Building Bridges and Black Lawyers for Justice.
Wonderful. And with regard to the Jenkins Parker case, you're co-counsel on that case.
I'm co-counsel. Our lead counsel is actually a lawyer out of Washington, D.C., Brother Malik Shabazz. And I was helping him with another matter involving Emmett Till and trying to get that warrant served on Carolyn Bryant before she passed away. And of course, with her passing, that case became moot. But it was my involvement in that case because I'm been friends with Priscilla Sterling, who's an activist and a relative of the Till family. And I've been friends with her for probably the better part of 30 years.
Wow.
Her and her brothers. And so that led into, I was already assisting with that, and when the Jenkins and Parker matter happened, so we already had that association, and it just continued from there. And then Miss Lee was actually, she started out with a different attorney. They parted ways, and she was without an attorney. and there were, motions pending, and I said, well, I'm going to do the best I can, because it's just like anything else. You're not necessarily ideally trying to pick up a case that another lawyer started.
Right.
But what I did know is that Ms. Lee was not going to win that case, and there was going to be no justice if I didn't try. And so we started on that case. I brought in Brother Katush Badi, who's another local attorney whose office is around the corner from mine. And then Mr. Shabazz is involved in that case also.
Wonderful.
And so we're trying to get some justice for the Cameron and Lee families, just like we're trying to get justice for Mr. Jenkins and Mr. Parker, because unfortunately, Damian Cameron lost his life.
Right.
And so, and what people need to realize, some of the same officers, who are being sued and who killed Damian Cameron, some of the same officers who were in on this illegal raid on the Jenkins and Parker case, who are also some of the same officers who were present when they shot Pierre Woods in Pelahatchie, Mississippi, back in 2019. So you have, coincidentally or otherwise, these same officers keep showing up.
Right.
And as the saying goes, one time is an accident, two times is a coincidence at best.
Right.
And certainly 2 or 3 times as a pattern.
That's a pattern. And would you, I'm not sure if it was your intention or not, but would you care to maybe summarize a little bit for the viewers with the Jenkins-Parker case, a little bit about what went on? Okay. And wasn't there 6 officers?
There was, we believe, 6 officers. That's the number that both Mr. Parker and Mr. Jenkins have given, and they were in a position to know. But Mr. Parker and Mr. Jenkins were tortured. The police forced their way into the home. Mr. Parker was actually staying there. There's a handicapped woman who's the owner of the house, white lady, who is the owner of the house, and she was actually hospitalized at the time. So Mr. Parker assists her. And he says, he's been friends with her for 20 years. He was there to assist her. There was another white gentleman who actually was staying at the house but was not present at that time. But these officers forced their way into the house, immediately handcuffed Mr. Parker and Mr. Jenkins, and then they set about beating and torturing them for the better part of 2 hours.
Handcuffed.
While handcuffed at all times. The only exception is, according to Mr. Parker and Mr. Jenkins, at one point, one of the officers took the handcuffs off of Mr. Jenkins and told him that I just need an excuse to kill you. And so otherwise, they're handcuffed at all times. While they were handcuffed, they were tased. We have 6 pages of taser records where there are significant redactions. And if you look at one line as being an entry, and I've not, if I'm being honest, I've not gotten all the ins and outs of how to read these taser records, but what I do know is that there are 89 separate lines that are redacted. Wow. And anything that's under investigation, a redacted part is considered to be part of the investigation. And so I can only read that by saying that there are up to 89 separate discharges of tasers in this incident, which lasted, by my count, for at least 54 minutes, so the better part of an hour.
Horror, living hell.
In addition, that's just the beginning.
Yeah.
While they were tasing them, they would torture and they would make fun of them and say, hey, tell me whose taser is the strongest.
Right.
And they would tase each of them. At that point, they were in, I believe, separate rooms. And then they come out, and if they gave differing answers, they just did it again. And so they literally were making fun of them. They were mocking them, torturing them. They then put them on their backs. They waterboarded them with chocolate syrup, with milk that they got out of the refrigerator, with vegetable oil, cooking oil, and with liquor that they found in the house. They went in the refrigerator, got eggs out of the refrigerator. They pelted them with eggs. Then they forced them to shower together to wash off all the liquids that had been poured on them. When they got out, and this whole time they're punching, they're kicking, they're beating them.
It's emasculating in the middle of torture.
And speaking of, went and got a sex toy and put it on the end of a police baton and told them to turn around. And that didn't happen, and I'll just go ahead and say, because it will be public record soon enough. But for the two men having defecated on themselves from everything that had gone on to that point, they would have sexually assaulted them with that sex toy. Then to top it off, made them get on their knees in one of the bedrooms, put one of the officers put his service weapon inside the mouth of Michael Jenkins and eventually discharged and shot. Cut Mr. Jenkins' tongue in half. It had to be sewed back together. And but for the angle of the gun, but for the grace of God, he'd have been dead because the bullet exited out of his lower jaw on the right side. So had to have a trach put in. He has difficulty speaking, has had to have multiple surgeries. He is partially paralyzed on that side of his, on the right side of his face. They have to tape his right eye shut in order for him to go to sleep at night. And so you had that, and then they falsified a report saying that he had a gun, and that whichever one of the officers pulled their weapon and fired. But of course, that could not factually be correct with the medical evidence and the physical evidence that's there. And so so we know that they falsified evidence in this case. They lied about why they were there, and it is highly unlikely. I want to make sure I'm legally correct. It is highly unlikely they ever had a warrant in the first place. And I will go on record as saying that I have represented other people where the Rankin County Sheriff's Department has come in with multiple officers on a quote-unquote raid. No warrant. And we get to court. This is the one case I'm thinking about was a justice court case. I get here and the prosecutor stops me at the door. If they're found guilty, I'm asking for jail time. And I've already gotten the discovery, and I know you didn't turn a warrant over with your discovery. So, you don't have a warrant. But guess what? Officers just didn't come to court.
Sad.
So that case was dismissed. But in the meantime, you violated people's constitutional rights. You've come into their house, allegedly because you smell weed. Let's be honest. What's going on here? When you have 6 officers come into a house, you're not going there because you smell weed. You're not. When you have 6 officers, that many officers coming into a house, you're there for a raid. You're there. If it's a drug raid, you're there because you're not there for a 20 sack. You're there because you expect that you're going to find significant amounts of drugs in that house. In this particular case, and I believe that this charge was trumped up, they charged Michael with possession of between 2 and 8 grams of methamphetamine and aggravated assault on a police officer. That's what they charged him with to justify his arrest. He had to make a $50,000 bond because while he was in the hospital, they stationed a Rankin County officer in there. Of course, he was in a coma for several days. But they would not give. You have a picture there of his mother. But they would not give his mother and his father any information. They had him in the hospital under an assumed alias that the hospital will give whenever there's a shooting involved. They will have the patients under an alias. But his parents didn't have the alias. And so the only way that they ever got any information was they needed to do surgery, and the Rankin County Sheriff's Department did not know the correct medical information, so they had to involve his mother. But up until that time, they wouldn't give her any information. They told her that Michael was their property and that he belonged to them. And withheld his parents from having any kind of access to him after he had been shot for days.
and this has been reported out by ABC News, by the New York Post, all kinds of major outlets well outside of Associated Press, outside of Mississippi, also Mississippi Today, and Rosalind Anderson over at WLBT did a piece on this also. So there's all kinds of information online to take a look at more of these details that Attorney Walker is providing for us now. Is there anything else that we should cover before we recap one more time the who, what, when, where, and how kind of piece? Is there anything else you'd like to add?
Well, I do just want to make sure, because if there's more information, I do want to point out, as I said, the United States Department of Justice is involved in investigating this incident. They may be involved in investigating other incidents too. Reason I say maybe is, if you know anything about dealing with the federal government, the FBI, the Department of Justice, and as a criminal lawyer, I can tell you, by the time they make their presence known to you as a suspect, then they have already gathered the information that they need to proceed with an entire case. And they do not talk. If you ask anybody from the Department of Justice, they will only say no comment.
And I think they've got that Taylorsville Rasheem Carter.
It's my understanding they are investigating that also.
So, I mean, we just have multiple things going on in this state at the same time.
All at the same time.
Requiring federal intervention.
That's
Department
right.
of Justice intervention.
That's right.
So our way of doing business around here, they just will not go about things fairly and equitably.
They will not, and let's also be honest. There's a lot of political cover. That allows law enforcement to act the way that they do without fear of consequence.
Sure.
After George Floyd died, they tried to pass the George Floyd Police Reform Act. You have to excuse me. Got a scratchy throat all of a sudden. But in any event, they tried to pass that, which would have done away with qualified immunity, which is a judicial creation. That is not a legislative creation, but would have done away with qualified immunity and would have made it easier to hold officers liable for the atrocities that they commit. And they got a lot of cover from, and I didn't come to make this a political thing, but from a current presidential candidate and from a political party to not, so that there were not the votes in order to make the changes that really need to be made in order to have effective police reform in America.
Very sad. Very sad. So we just remind everybody that the NAACP, along with the two
Black
other
Lawyers
sponsors,
for Justice and Building Bridges,
and Black Lawyers for Justice, will be hosting this town hall in Rankin County in Brandon this weekend on Saturday at 12 noon is lunch. It'll merge into the town hall meeting at approximately 1 o'clock. This is at Pilgrim Rest Methodist Baptist Church.
Missionary Baptist
Church, pardon me, 925 Trickham Bridge Road in Brandon. So that's on Saturday. And we good?
We are.
Okay. So we thank you so much for your attention, and we look forward to seeing folks out there. You'll be able to view this special edition of Sizzling in Mississippi frequently. We will continue to run this at least up until the event itself starts, and maybe even be able to provide some coverage over there this weekend. So we thank you very much for tuning in to this special edition of Sizzling in Mississippi, and we'll see you back soon. Have a great day. Take good care of yourselves and each other.